What's up, guys, and welcome back to Texas Fishing Force. I'm Mike Ashworth, and well, this week I have gone through tons and tons of emails and comments and Facebook messages and everything else about wade fishing. Since I posted my last video a few weeks ago about wade fishing, you guys have lots of questions, so that's what we're going to go over today. We're going to discuss wade fishing, how to scout locations, how to look at those locations, figure out what you need to know, what apps I use to plan a wade fishing trip, and we're going to try to cover it all. Now, I know there's a lot of people that have done videos like this, and there are plenty of wade fishing tips and tricks videos on YouTube, but I'm going to show you how I do it. It may be a little bit different. I know everyone's got their own thing. So let's get into it. Roll that intro. All right, guys, if you are new to wade fishing, or maybe you've been wade fishing for a while and you're just looking for more information or maybe some new spots or places to go, well, this is where you're going to want to start. This is a hook and line map. This has more information than I can ever give you. I guarantee it. Now, these hook and line maps, they are location specific, but they're also topic specific. This one is for wade, shore, and kayak fishing, and this is for West Galveston Bay. Inside these maps, there is a ton of information. You could study this thing for months, I promise you. Now, on these maps, it will give you information like great kayak launch spots. It'll give you locations that you can drive up and start wading. It will tell you where all of the greatest wade spots are all around West Bay, but it will also tell you what kind of fish that you can look to catch in those areas. It will give you danger areas, grass flats, pockets, deep cuts. It just tons and tons of information on this map. So this is really where you want to start. All right, so one of the first things that you're going to want to do is start following the weather and the conditions of wherever you're fishing. Generally, you want to do that days before your fishing trip. In fact, for me, I've made it a habit to check the weather every single day in all of the locations that I fish regularly. It's just become a habit, and it gives you so much information that helps you plan that trip in the future, that it's just one of those things that you've got to do it, and you've got to get used to doing it. For instance, if you have northwest winds for 3 to 4 days before your fishing trip, and then on the day that you go, you end up with a southeast wind, for instance, well, that absolutely gives you information that should change where you fish. You do not want to be fishing in certain locations based on the way that the wind and the weather conditions are. Now, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on where you should be fishing based on the wind. I've already done videos on weather, and I'll link that above in case you want to check that out. But you need to be getting as much information before your trip as you possibly can so that you can help plan a more successful trip. And that's what you want to do. You want to gain information and you want to put it together and put it to use to planning a fishing trip. So when I'm looking at information before a trip, there's 5 things that I'm really looking for, and that is wind, rain, lunar activity, fish activity, and tides. That's really what I care about. And I'm going to show you the apps that I use to help me find that information and give me more insight to plan a trip. So these are all of the apps that I use for fishing. If you want to go ahead and pause this video at this point, go ahead, take a look at all of the apps that I use if you want to look at them in a little bit more detail. But the rest of us are moving on. Now, when it comes to the wind, there are a lot of people that use Wind Finder, and I've used that many times in the past, but recently I prefer using fish weather, so I'm going to go ahead and pull that up so you see what it looks like. When you open it, it does show you a map, and it has these arrows here. If you click on any one of these arrows, it will bring up a menu, and I click forecast. That's really the only thing I use this app for, is this right here. It comes up with a chart, and it shows you things like wind, the wind gust, wind direction. It shows you the temperature, precipitation, and wave height. Now, the great thing about this is it does show you hour by hour, and if I scroll, I can go day by day, and it shows you every single hour in that location what the weather is going to look like. It's just a very handy app that you can look at really quickly, get a lot of information really fast. It's all kind of compiled together in one. That's what I use fish weather for. I like it a lot. It's generally pretty accurate, and so that's the first place that I start when I'm looking at the weather. Now, the second app I use, and I've just recently started using this, is Fishing Points. Fishing Points I downloaded about 2 months ago, and it's just got a lot of information. So I'm going to show that to you now. This is Fishing Points. Now, again, it comes up and it will show you the maps. Now, all of these little boxes down here are things that I have added. You can add points wherever you want, maybe where you've caught fish, maybe points of interest, things like that. And you can change the images for each one to represent different things. But what I am most interested in today showing you is this. When I click over here on the menu, it gives me a lot of information like map locations. Now those locations are these down here that I have pre-selected. You can put as many in there as you want. If you want to log all of your fishing catches, you can do that. And then the forecast section, which shows fish activity, waves, tides, weather, and the lunar activity. So let's first start off with the weather. When I click on the weather, this is what it shows. Tons and tons of information all in one spot. If I go to these tabs here, we have the temperature, we have the precipitation, we have wind, and barometric pressure. Now, if you look on the bottom left corner here, it gives you a little more detail about the wind. It's showing the direction that it is going, wind speed, wind gusts, it shows all that. And it shows a map here that gives you kind of an automated view of what that looks like in the direction that it's going. Now we are going to go back to wind here. Again, this one does show you hour by hour, so I can scroll back and forth, see exactly what that looks like. And at the top, I can pick day by day all the way across so that I can look at, if I'm planning a trip in future days, I can see exactly what that's going to look like all the way up until my fishing trip. Now, let's go back to the menu, and the next thing that we are going to look at is tides. Tides here, it gives you a nice curve, shows you all of that. It shows you the time for low tide, the time for high tide, gives you that information. And one of the great things that I really do like about this app is that I can go back in time and I can look at a day's previously. Unlike a lot of apps that only shows you today forward. Now, that is really, really helpful if you have forgotten to look at the forecast previously to your fishing trip. This app will actually help you, and you can go back and look and see what it's like. We all know that sometimes you have those fishing trips that just kind of come up out of nowhere, and if you haven't been really checking this, then an app like this will help you determine where you should go fish. The next thing that we are going to look at is the fish activity. So when I click on fish activity, right in the middle, it shows you the average fish activity for that day, and then it breaks it down into times. Now, at the bottom, it does show you the major and minor feeding times, which we know is directly correlated to the lunar calendar. I'm going to show you that here. So this is that. It gives you a lot of information: day, night, sunset, sunrise, dusk, dawn, all of that information right here. Now, I know last Thursday, as I go back, was a full moon. So if I look at the full moon, gives me that information here. Generally on full moons, you have really, really high fish activity. So I'm going to go to fish activity here. So today is Monday. I'm going to go back to Thursday and look at what the fish activity was then. Yep, exactly like I thought. Fish activity is really, really high. It's at 94 out of 100. And again, it shows you major and minor feeding times down here. And then as I scroll through the days, you can see that the fish activity is dropping all the way today, where it's average at 42%. So that is, those are the two apps that I use most for finding forecast and some location information and all of that. Next thing that I really want to do is I want to pull up Google Maps. Now I can pull it up straight from here, or again in Fishing Points, I can look at Google Maps with that. Now I've taken some screenshots of some locations that I have wade fished in the past. I'm going to bring those up to show you now. There is some key information that when I'm looking at Google Maps that I'm really looking for when I'm trying to scout out a spot. And so I'm going to show you what that looks like on Google Maps here now. So all of these locations that I'm showing you here, they are very, very common wade fishing locations. Now, this video isn't about giving away locations. What it is showing you how to pick and find your own, because that's going to be way more beneficial in the future. What I want you to be able to do going away from this video is to be able to use all of this information to find your spots, find where you want to fish based on the weather, based on the forecast, and looking at maps like this. All right, so here is the first image. This is a very, very common spot, but I want to show you what I look for when I'm looking through Google Maps. So this spot here, we notice that we have this really, really deep channel that kind of runs through here. And what I like about this is that you can see, based on the dark water, which generally means deeper water, when you're looking at Google Maps, that we have this kind of flow that runs through here. Now, when it spreads out like that there at the end, that tells you that, one, that water through there is moving pretty quickly. There's a lot of water flow, and I like that when I'm fishing. Secondly, if we look at this spot that is closest to the bank here, you can see down here that there is this kind of structure going on, which is most likely oyster shell and grass. Now, I have fished this spot, so I already know that, but based on the image, I wanted to show you what that looks like. Now, all through here, all of this image is a little bit lighter, so generally what that means is we have a shallow kind of bank here that's probably mixed with sand and shell and things like that, which is generally a really good spot to fish. So for me, this would be one of those spots that I would wade all along here, and I would be casting into this deep water, this cut that runs all the way through here, and try to pick up some of those fish that are going through the guts and through the deeper water. All right, on to the next image. This is just a random spot that I kind of picked because I like what I can see on here. This actually gives you a ton of information. So first off, you can see all of this that is going on down here. That is grass flats. I love fishing grass flats. You get a lot of fish that get caught up in there chasing some of the bait fish. You're going to find redfish. You're going to find trout that run through all of that. So this is a really good spot to start your wading. If you notice a little bit closer to shore, it's very, very sandy all the way across here. We got that really light color pattern there. Now, what I do like about this, as you can see over here, we have these deeper areas that sand is being pushed out. Now, these little guts are great to hide some of those bigger fish that are chasing bait in and out of that. Now, if you look on the right side of this, we also have a really, really deep cut. We also have more grass and oyster and shell all through here. So this entire area is just a fantastic spot to look for in fishing. We've got deep areas, we've got guts, we have grass flats, we have sand, we have oyster, we have all of that in one spot. We also have some of these drains that come in here to some of the marsh areas. All of this, it's just a really, really great looking spot based on Google Maps and just this image here. All right, so I've got one more image for you here, and this is, again, just a random spot. This is a spot that has great potential when it comes to wading just based on this image alone. So what we have here is we have a lot of marsh areas, which means that we also have drains and things that are going out into the bay. Now, what I really like about this is this section here. So when we have big openings like that, big cuts into these drains in the marsh, and you see this water extend all the way out into the bay here a little bit, that tells us, one, that water is generally moving pretty quickly. It's got a lot of movement, a lot of flow on those tidal movements, and this is a great spot to be fishing. So for me, I would be all across this edge. I'd really kind of pinpoint this spot, start fishing into that, move out, and fishing into this area. These are great spots, but I would also like to add that fishing any of these drains that run into the marsh is a great spot. I also like that we have this pocket, these pockets over here. Fish generally will go into these areas that lead into the marshes. They get stuck in there chasing fish, and as a wader, you can really come and hit that line and start fishing into this, catch some of the fish that are on the shorelines. This is a good spot to catch redfish that are running in and out of the marsh and chasing bait fish. It's just really a good potential spot for some good wade fishing. All right, so once I look at Google Maps, that gives me a good idea about some things like water flow and movement and grass flats and oyster and guts and drains. All that information I can kind of see on Google Maps. However, the one thing that I don't know is depth. I don't know for sure, just looking at the image, if that's even a spot that I can wade. It could be 6 foot deep there, and there's no way that I can possibly wade that. So the next thing that I do is I'll take those exact same spots and I will load them up into Navionics. Now, Navionics is a program that I have running on all my fish finders as well. It gives you a ton of information, a lot more information than you can see just on Google Maps or even some of your other apps. So Navionics does come on fish finders when you get the cards, but they have a mobile version as well that you can load up on your iPad and your iPhone. So I use that. After I look at some places on Google Maps, I will load it up on Navionics just to see if this is a place that's even doable, if it's shallow enough, or if there's any information on here. So here's the Navionics mapping of one of the images that we looked at just a few minutes ago, and as you can see, it just has a ton more information. Now, before I mentioned there was all of this grass flats here that I really liked. I love all of that, and here on Navionics it shows that in a lot more detail. Now you can see that it also continues all the way through here. Over here is that deep channel that we looked at before, and then it did have a lot of these kind of guts that were running through here. So based on this actually looks a lot better, and the reason is I can see here these numbers here. That shows you the depth of the water on average. This is 2 foot deep, 3 foot, and then as we get out to this line, we get into that 4 foot range. So based on the Google Maps image, bringing this into Navionics, it tells me one thing, that I can come out and I can wade a lot further out here. I can actually get into where some of those guts were and really fish those a lot heavier. So the Google image didn't really show me how deep that was, and so looking at it on here tells me that this is a much better spot than I thought, just because I can cover a lot more here and I don't have to stick to just fishing in the grass flats. All right, and here is the first image that we looked at, and I showed you before. You've got this kind of sandy area that runs here. We've got this deep cut that kind of spreads out over here. What Google Maps didn't tell me, though, was that we have spots like this, that we have some deep holes, which is another thing that I really like to fish. So for me, I would really try to fish this whole bank like I mentioned before, but I would really make an emphasis on here because you're going to have fish that are running in this deep water. If we look at the numbers here, it's showing that this is 6 and 8 foot deep. They're going to come out here, these deep holes. You're going to find fish in those. They're going to extend out. So this is just a really good area, and Navionics helps improve my knowledge of the area where I can find a lot more fish and look at some really key spots that I need to be fishing. All right, guys, well, that is it. I hope I helped answer some of the questions that many of you had on planning, scouting a wade fishing trip. If you have any more questions, don't hesitate to comment below, send me a message, send me an email. I try to answer everybody. And yeah, if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button, like, comment below, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.